When I walked into the courtroom that morning, my ex-wife and her new lover rolled their eyes as if I were an inconvenience, not the man she once vowed to spend her life with. Their smirks hit me like a slap. She leaned close to him, whispering something that made him laugh, his hand resting casually on the small of her back, the same place mine used to rest. For a moment, the air felt heavy, thick with humiliation and rage. I forced myself to look away, but their laughter followed me, sharp as glass. I took a seat at the plaintiff's table, my palms cold despite the warmth of the room. The scent of polished wood and old paper mixed with the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. It wasn't supposed to come to this. Divorce was one thing. But custody, fighting for my son, was another. 2 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be sitting across from Rebecca in a courtroom, watching her twine her fingers with another man's, I'd have laughed. We were the couple everyone envied, steady, warm, always smiling in photos. But pictures lie. Behind every smile, there were fractures, small and silent, spreading like cracks in glass. It started with distance. She said I worked too much. She said I didn't make her feel wanted. I tried harder, flowers, dinners, weekends away. But something had already shifted. There was someone else before I ever realized it. I didn't find out through confession. I found out through silence. She started locking her phone, stepping outside to take calls from work. She'd come home late, smelling faintly of a man's cologne she couldn't name. I wanted to believe her, wanted to think I was imagining things. Until one night, I followed her. She told me she was on a late shift at the clinic. I parked 2 streets away, heart pounding like it wanted to burst from my chest. She wasn't at the clinic. She was at a restaurant, sitting across from him, Daniel, the man she'd later bring to court as her partner. I watched her laugh, watched him brush a strand of hair from her face, and something in me died quietly right there. She saw me as I stood outside the window. Her face paled, the color draining from her cheeks. I didn't shout or storm in. I just walked away. The next morning, she told me she was unhappy, that she didn't mean for me to find out like that. She wanted to talk. I didn't. The papers came 2 weeks later. Now, months later, here we were. Same woman, same man, different battlefield. The judge entered, her gavel echoing through the room. All rise. Everyone stood. My stomach tightened as I looked at Rebecca one more time. She avoided my gaze. The case was supposed to be simple, child custody and visitation rights. But nothing about it felt simple. Her attorney painted me as distant, inattentive, emotionally unavailable. Words that sounded sterile in legal language but cut like blades. I clenched my jaw, keeping my face still. My lawyer whispered for me to stay calm. When Rebecca took the stand, I could barely breathe. She spoke softly, her voice breaking at the right moments. She said she didn't want to keep our son from me but worried I couldn't provide the emotional stability he needed. I almost laughed out loud. Emotional stability, from the woman who'd blown our life apart with lies. Then Daniel took the stand. I hadn't expected that. He talked about how he'd been a supportive figure for my son, how he'd seen positive behavioral changes when my boy spent time with them. The audacity of it made my vision blur. He spoke like a man rehearsed, confident, composed. And then it happened. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Adams," she said to Daniel, "you claim to have witnessed the child frequently." "Yes, Your Honor," he said smoothly. "Almost every weekend for the past 6 months." The judge glanced at the paperwork. "That's interesting," she said. "Because according to this, Mrs. Adams only had weekend custody 3 times in the last 6 months. Would you like to clarify how that's possible?" Silence spread like wildfire. Rebecca's face went rigid. Daniel blinked, thrown off. He stammered, trying to find an answer, but it was too late. The judge wasn't letting go. "Were you spending time with the child outside of Mrs. Adams' custody schedule?" she pressed. I sat perfectly still, my pulse pounding in my ears. Rebecca shifted, her lawyer whispering frantically in her ear. Daniel muttered something about miscommunication, but the judge wasn't buying it. When the court adjourned for recess, Rebecca stormed out first, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. I followed, more out of instinct than intention. She spun around in the hallway, eyes flashing. "You think you've won something?" she hissed. "You always wanted to make me the villain." I kept my voice steady. "You did that yourself." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, I saw something flicker, guilt, maybe even regret, but it vanished. She turned and walked away, Daniel trailing after her, his confidence cracked for the first time. Back in the courtroom, the atmosphere had shifted. The judge's tone was different now, cautious but firm. She ordered a temporary adjustment, shared custody pending further review. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was justice beginning to tilt in my favor. When it was over, I stepped outside into the gray afternoon. The air smelled like rain. Across the parking lot, Rebecca and Daniel stood by their car. She saw me watching. For a second, she looked small, lost, even. Daniel said something to her, but she didn't respond. She just got into the car and closed the door. I didn't feel triumph. Just exhaustion. I drove home, the silence in the car thick and heavy. My son's drawing was still taped to the dashboard, a stick figure family, the three of us smiling. I stared at it until the lines blurred. That night, I got a call from my lawyer. She sounded cautious. "The judge wants a private review of Rebecca's conduct," she said. Apparently, Daniel's testimony raised a few red flags. There might be an investigation into potential interference with custody. I hung up and sat in the dark, unsure whether to feel relief or sorrow. This wasn't how I wanted things to go. I didn't want her destroyed. I just wanted the truth. Weeks later, when the final ruling came, the judge granted me primary custody. Her voice was calm but firm as she cited concerns about stability and honesty in the respondent household. Rebecca cried then. Not the soft, manipulative tears from before, real tears, silent ones that streaked her makeup. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. As I left the courtroom, Daniel didn't look at me this time. He just stared at the floor, jaw tight. The smugness was gone. Outside, the sun had broken through the clouds. I stood there for a long moment, breathing it in, realizing that sometimes justice doesn't roar, it whispers quietly after all the noise fades. And for the first time in years, I felt the air in my lungs like it meant something.